We have a plan, because of the power of our military, where every bridge in Iran will be decimated by 12 o'clock. Every power plant in Iran will be out of business, burning, exploding, and never to be used again. I mean, complete demolition by 12 o'clock. And it'll happen over a period of 4 hours if we wanted to. We don't want that to happen.
President Trump reasserting his deadline of 8 p.m. Eastern tonight for Tehran to strike a deal with the U.S. and reopen the Strait of Hormuz, or face the destruction of all of its bridges and power plants. Well, the president says the U.S. is in communication with Iran. Tehran reportedly rejected a proposal for a 45-day ceasefire. Instead, it's offering a 10-point plan that demands an immediate end to this conflict. It's demanding safe passage through the Gulf, reconstruction, and the lifting of all sanctions. Joining me now is North Carolina Congressman Pat Harrigan. He serves on the House Armed Services Committee, and he served on the U.S. Army Special Forces. Congressman, thank you so much for your service to our great nation, number one.
Maria, it's great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
We appreciate that. I want to get your take on what we're hearing from Iran, that apparently they are coming back with their own proposal. We don't have verification on specifics, but it looks like they've got this official 10-point peace proposal that they are putting forth. Where does this go?
Well, I think it's got to be a deal that President Trump deems acceptable. And what that means is it's got to be a deal that's in the strategic interests of the United States of America. I don't think we're there right now. I think that's why you're seeing the president elevate the rhetoric to the point that he has, which is in response to where the markets are and where we are militarily, right? We've done an incredible job from a military perspective, but what we do and how we do it is unbelievably expensive, and it's certainly having impacts on the global economy. So Iran has to come to the table here, and they've got to choose commerce instead of choosing chaos. Yeah. I think when they do that, the president will signal that we are on the right track and that we're going to move forward.
Well, what a press conference the president gave yesterday to walk us through that incredible recovery of our airman who was stuck in Iran for a day. Your reaction to what the military was able to pull off here and get the president out front telling us as much as he could about it yesterday?
I think it was absolutely incredible. And if you had any questions about the capability of the United States military, it has sequentially over the last year just been etched in stone how dominant of a force we actually are. And whether it was Midnight Hammer a year ago in Iran, whether it was snatching and grabbing Maduro out of Venezuela, or whether it was this systematic operation that we've seen dismantling an entire country over the last 38 days, or whether it was this extraction of this pilot in Iran, the total combined force element that actually represented should make every single American proud. And yes, look, it was incredibly complex. It was incredibly expensive. It was incredibly dangerous, but it was worth every single penny to get that pilot out.
Absolutely. We leave no man or woman behind. Now, President Trump is asking for $1.5 trillion in defense spending. Of course, part of the White House fiscal 2027 budget request. That's a nearly 40% increase from 2026 levels. This plan would include roughly $1 trillion in base defense funding, $350 billion in mandatory funding for munitions and industrial capacity. It's also maintaining funding for the Golden Dome, the missile defense system, using space-based technology. The budget is also aiming to cut billions from domestic programs, including a proposal to cut 10% in non-defense discretionary spending. That would impact agencies such as NASA, the State Department, the EPA, the Labor Department, the Housing and Urban Development Department. Congressman, are you supportive of this plan?
Yeah, look, I think the president's plan is reflective of the fact that the world's becoming a more dangerous place, not a less dangerous place. We've talked about this since the fall of Afghanistan, which basically greenlit Russia moving into Ukraine, had just simply unleashed chaos all around the globe. That was American weakness, unfortunately, that did that under President Joe Biden. President Trump is trying to reassert that authority. The reality is, though, is that costs money and it's very expensive. And so we have to take a look at where the globe is right now. President Trump is trying to actually turn the temperature down.
Yep.
He's absolutely trying to put the screws to our strategic adversaries, which is China and Russia. He's doing that by taking off their periphery allies in Venezuela and now Iran. And look, this is going to cost some money.
Yeah.
But I think that the dividend that it will generate for the United States of America cannot be understated.
Well, I love the impact on our number one adversary, China, by the way. Liz Peek, jump in here.
Congressman, there's a lot of talk about a reconciliation bill resolving some of the problems, for example, with DHS funding. How much of the increase in military spending could be greenlit through reconciliation?
Well, the president's targeting $350 billion through the reconciliation process. I hope that we can get there, but we've got a math problem in Congress. I mean, there's no question about it, right? I mean, we're down to effectively a one-seat majority, and that one seat doesn't generally vote with us. And so we've got to figure out how to overcome that math problem. Hopefully, we might be able to even, get some Democrats on board, given the uncertainty of foreign policy and where it is right now, and the existential crises that we have across the globe, whether it be with our military and the in extremis challenges that it's involved in right now, or whether it's Department of Homeland Security and the gaps that we have strategically from a wide open southern border over the last 4 years, having people in our country that want to do us harm during this critical time. So I hope everybody kind of wakes up.
Yep.
And we can get this across the finish line.
It's incredibly irresponsible to have the Department of Homeland Security shut down during a war with Iran and known sleeper cells across the country. So what are you going to do about this? I mean, I know you and your colleagues in the Senate are scrambling to end this partial shutdown, longest in history. DHS still closed, 53 days closed. Some lawmakers are calling on the Speaker to bring the lower chamber back from recess. Are you going to come back?
I don't think that we're going to come back from recess. I've talked to our leadership about this. And look, we have to just continue to make it crystal clear that it's unbelievably irresponsible how the Democrats are handling this situation. They are truly choosing politics when they actually need to choose closing strategic gaps that we have in our nation's security right here at home. Why on earth we are defunding the government agency that's actually responsible for combating terrorism on our homeland after 4 years of open borders is indescribable.
Real quick, Congressman, is there going to be any blowback for our European allies who dug in and would not help the United States during this time of stress?
I think that remains to be seen, right? I think the president has actually played this correctly. How exactly that plays out with our allies long term, I think it is going to force them to step up. There's no question about that. All
right, Congressman, we'll be watching your work, certainly. Good to see you this morning, sir. Pat Harrigan.
Good to see you, too. Thanks.
All right, we'll see you soon. We'll be right back. Stay with us.